I do take pleasure in bad news because it's good for business. And I died during the greenhouse effect of the 1980s, which is what it used to be called. It's now called global warming, climate change. And here we are again. Perth hasn't drowned, the coast hasn't gone under. We're still talking about how to communicate science to the wide public, how we make that communication bridge between the scientists and the person out on the street who's more interested in what Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie are doing and what's happening to the share market at the moment around the world, if it's really happening. There are skeptics who say that it's just make-believe. Well, I don't know how much you believe. My job is twofold these days. Yes, I used to work full-time for the West Australian newspaper here in Perth, 18 long years, where I learnt that after a few years of tabloid-like journalism where information moving so fast, you package it, you put a picture to it, you get it out there, bottom line, sell newspapers. Well, it got a bit more complicated. The more experience you get, the more information that comes across your desk. The challenge there is, what do you believe, what's credible, and more importantly, what is the public going to believe? I've been hearing about 1 metre sea rises around the world and around Australia, even as recently as 2 weeks ago. Actually, quite a funny report I won't go into because I may embarrass the reporter. But, you know, I keep hearing the same message, and all we're doing is repackaging it in a different way. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. I'm sorry to say that the media out there in general is a little fickle when it comes to climate change. It does sensationalise, it does pick up the bad news. Because believe it or not, that's what people generally do want to hear. They do want to hear the good news. They do want to hear how we're going to mitigate against climate change. The new environmental engineering that's emerging to protect our coastlines, to protect people exposed to tsunamis. And there is another, we can go talking about this for days, tsunamis, heat spells, bushfires. One way or another, they're getting linked to climate change. Marriage bust-ups are getting linked to climate change. What do science journalists do then? Well, you know, I say bring it back to basics. If someone is talking to you and conveying information in a story or something that's happened to them, you know, there's some sense of, do I believe this person? Well, that's what the journalist is doing with the scientist. The scientist has a set of data, the journalist has to rely on that scientific interpretation and take that away to an editor who is not trained in science, to a group of editors who then have to package it and put their own so-called spin on it. And that's where it gets complicated. That's where the level of trust between scientist and communicator and the public, by extension, is compromised. But if you strip back to basics, this is what I teach my students. You're there to inform and educate. You're there to create balanced, credible, believable stories. Not to polarise the debate between what Simon just said about, you know, the country being wetter. Well, not the whole country is wet. Parts of it are going to be wet. Some of it's quite logical. Stick to facts. Now, I teach hundreds of students going through university every year, and some of them want to be, or most of them I hope want to be journalists. Some of them want to be science communicators. They want to get into environment. Yes, there are those that want to report on fashion and independent music scene, but you know, that's the kids of today. But there are those that really are in tune with the world, and it's technology that's helped them do that. The challenge for journalists is to stick to basics, to stick to facts, and to convey the message. And you know, it's quite subtle too. Tim's introduction was about bouts in Copenhagen and red corners and blue corners. You know, the language is subtle. To Simon's, if you look in that booklet that he referred to, look at the disclaimer. It's the longest sentence in the whole page. So, you know, it's subtle and sometimes it's quite obvious. And the way it's obvious is when you switch on the TV or go online and bang, there it is in your face. Icebergs off New Zealand. Oh my God, climate change is happening. It's here, it's real. But is it? Perspective is a big part of this business. As a teacher, although I teach students to question the who, the what, the where and why, and then to probe in further, the public doesn't have that luxury. They have to consume. They have to believe what's put in front of them. Now, I'm not quite sure whether everybody was convinced that icebergs off New Zealand equals climate change and it's all over for you. But there are those that do, and the challenge is to turn that around with a correct, accurate message, clear message. Okay? There are plenty of case studies where journalists have got it wrong. Why have they got it wrong? Why have the communicators put out the wrong message? Is it their lack of skill, or is it the scientist who's not articulating the way they should be? Whether for whatever reason. Opportunities, I think Susanna's brought up a great one, and well, 2 points actually I'd like to quickly talk about. She talks about the new generation going through. I mean, there's the big challenge. I've been at it long enough. I can self-edit, I can do my research, but the young student who's graduating right now and who does want to be a science journalist, those that never see inside of a newsroom, they're on their own. They don't have the luxury of editors and support groups within the editing process that will, question. And there are the real skeptics, believe me, because they're not trained in science. And it goes through that meat-grinded process. Freelancers don't have that luxury, especially when they're just started. But if you've got 20 years of knowledge behind your experience, that's a different matter. And the challenge is to maybe look at those specialists, use them as mentors or teachers for those that are coming through. Opportunities? Yes, I think freelance does have some amazing opportunities. And the reason for that is that because there is a direct line between the communicator and the scientist. In a newsroom, there are lots of little lines. And as soon as you bring the information back to the office, in one case it can be manipulated, packaged and dressed up as climate change is over for the world, to the freelance specialist writer who is talking directly to the scientist, who has the space to explain what's going on and to sell that message accurately, credible, so people can believe it. And I think that's what's going to happen. It is happening already. Climate change communication has become quite a specialised market.